What is going on, guys? This is the Bogey-free podcast for the Greenbrier Classic. I am your host, Evan Cheney. Today, joined by my co-host, Matt Jones. How you doing today, Matt?
Not too bad, man. We're recording a little early today. It's about 12 hours earlier than we usually record, but I'm fired up. 4th of July, it's gonna be a good day.
It will be. I don't think there's going to be any weather issues, so that's good. At least around these parts. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, it looking like a nice day here as well. So I'm ready to get at it.
Oh man. Well, obviously the microphone says otherwise. With its jeez. All right. There we go. See, I'm a magician. All right. So, obviously, this week we have the Greenbrier Classic. Last week we had the Quicken Loans National. I don't know. You want to talk about that one for a sec? Just to recap that?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting Sunday for sure. Kind of had Lingmerth just mashing the first 2 days and just kind of fell apart. He still finished 5th, but yeah, I mean, Stanley ended up winning the thing in a playoff over Charles Howell, who we were talking about a couple weeks ago. So he's back, obviously. And you had Fowler up there, you had Keegan Bradley. So it was a pretty good tournament. Really nice course. I'm excited to see when they get back to that course because it played pretty difficult considering,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kyle Stanley was dominating that thing by the weekend. Him and Howell. They were just dominating. It was great. It was a great thing to see, actually, fantasy-wise. Even though I didn't profit, it was still a great thing to see. All right. Let's move to this week's tournament, the Greenbrier Classic. So, yeah, talk about that for a sec. And, yeah, let's just talk about what stats really stick out at this course.
Sure. So we're looking at it's called the Old White TPC down in West Virginia. This course actually got hit by really bad floods. I guess almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half ago. So this tournament wasn't played at all last year. So it's coming back. They made a few minor tweaks, but the course is pretty much playing the same. It's a par 70. It's a little bit on the longer side. It's almost 7,300 yards. So I'm definitely considering driving distance a little bit more than I do typically for a par 70, but it's still the same stuff. Par 3 scoring with the extra, with the 4 par 3s compared to the 2 par 5s. And then just accuracy. These greens are actually like on the larger than average size. So I think putting is a little important too. I don't typically mention putting because it's like the least sticky stat that you can possibly go after. There's a few elite guys up at the top who are great all the time. There are a few horrific guys down at the bottom who are terrible all the time. And then everybody else in the middle can sort of move up and down from even round to round. It's not even like event wise. Typically, if you look through strokes game putting, it's all over the place. So if I know for sure that a guy is a solid putter, I'm considering that a little bit because of the big greens. But I'm really, really aiming for solid greens in regulation guys. If they have a little distance, it's a bonus. And just sort of, this week, not overthinking it. It's a really unbelievably weak field. And I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to go with guys who make cuts and have a little bit more, I guess you call it pedigree, just because it's a horrific field overall.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about last week's field being bad. This is even worse. I mean, you don't even have any of like the top like superstars in this league, or PGA in this tournament, right? Like you don't have a Spieth, you don't have a Fowler, you don't have a McIlroy. You have none of that. I mean, you have Phil Mickelson, but that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick
Everyone
Reed's
else
the
is
most
like
expensive guy. I think there's 8 of the top top 50. So we're talking nobody even in the top 20 in official world golf rankings. So yeah, this is definitely one of the weakest fields I think that we've talked about, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, of course, nothing could be as bad as Puerto Rico.
Right.
I mean, that was like that took the cake in weak fields, but still, this isn't really great. So yeah, let's break this down. Let's start with our upper tier guys in the salary range. I see you're switching it up on me.
I Yeah, hold on. All right,
Eh,
now we're good. I I was just sorting it by world golf ranking to make sure I wasn't talking out of my behind, and then I just wanted to put it back to salary. Sorry.
that's certainly a good thing. So yeah, let's talk about our 10K and up guys first, which includes Reed, Haas, Kistner, Mickelson, Webb Simpson, and David Lingmerth, which is a very interesting upper range here.
Yeah, I mean, God, like David Langworth at 10K. I mean, I know he's been playing well lately. It's just, oh man. I mean, it's
It's
hard to get
definitely
it's
yeah, it's
hard to get
definitely off,
excited.
yeah, it's definitely off-putting to see something like that. And Webb Simpson at 10-1.
Yeah. I mean, all these guys have been making cuts recently. Haas really sort of struggled for a few events there, but he's had 4 straight top 25s. Um, so I mean, I think Haas is good this week. Um, but I feel like every week that I'm on him, he ends up not doing what you like. I can't really get him right for some reason. Um, I don't think you need to play Reed if you don't want to. I think you can go a little bit lower and sort of get in a lot of these 9K guys and go super balanced this week if you want. But the fact that he's only at 11.2, like he's not costing you a ton. Usually the top guys at least 12K, maybe 12.5. So there's definitely a little bit more flexibility. And then Minsal this week is actually at 6,000. So you definitely have some wiggle room if you want to play around a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, Kisner's been great all year. You can probably make a case that he's been, I don't know, putting together a season that's at least like somewhere between like top 5 to top 10 for this year. And Mickelson, it's his first event with his brother caddying for him. I don't think that's going to make a difference. He hasn't missed a cut this year. And I don't see him missing a cut in a field like this. So I think all these guys are the top 4 guys at least. I'll definitely have some exposure to. I don't know if I'm going to be able to click Webb Simpson for 10-1, even though objectively I think he's a fine play. But I'd really prefer the top 4 there.
Okay, and then here's my question though. Do you think guys like Webb Simpson and David Lingmerth are going to be low owned?
I mean, I think that to a certain extent, there's like people who just sort of go by, recent form, and seeing Lingmerth play as well as he did last week. And plus the fact that I think he hit a 26th 2 weeks ago, but other than that, it's been all top 25s for the last 4 times he's played. So I do think that he'll see a little bit of ownership. I'm trying to pull up Fanshare. Yeah, I mean, Fanshare has him with the 8th most tags right now, which I don't think is terribly surprising given that he really shot out of a cannon to start last week. Webb Simpson is being talked up a ton, though. He's second in tags. So, I mean, if you're going to tell me that that Webb Simpson is going to be the second highest owned guy, I'm just going to fade him.
Yeah. That makes sense if he is going to be that highly owned. And if I don't know, if somehow he becomes a lower owned guy, then he becomes a better play.
Right.
I think we can both agree on that. Any Lingmerth love?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's been playing great.
Yeah.
He's got what? last eight starts, he's only been outside of 26th once. I mean, you really can't argue with that. I just I don't know. He's been playing a ton, and I just feel like, I mean, in the last like 10 weeks, he's played 8 events. So, I mean, that's a lot. I know that's like kind of narrative-y, but I don't know. I'm just not crazy about playing him at 10K when I have these guys coming up in the 9K range, and even some of them in the eights that are like, I think just a better class of golfer. So I would rather play quite a few guys over him in the next like $1,500 of salary personally.
Okay. I think it's a pretty good take on him. Next, we'll go to the 9K range here where we have Bubba Watson, Charlie Howell, Danny Lee, Keegan Bradley, Russell Henley, and Tony Finau. I think a pretty decent class of 9K golfers this
Yeah.
week. Wasn't Howell like in the 6,000s last week?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his price like jumped up dramatically.
I think there was a fair bit of his injury baked into his price last week. And I mean, clearly there's nothing to be concerned about. I mean, he shot, I think, 71 on Thursday, but he broke par Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then just kind of screwed up and gave it away on the playoff. But yeah, I mean, these golfers, there's quite a few here that I like. I'm not touching Bubba with a 10-foot pole because I mean, maybe if you want to throw him in a GPP, but I have no interest. I really like Charles Howell this week. Really like Danny Lee. He's been playing great. I think he definitely doesn't have the distance that I sort of alluded to earlier. But I mean, I think he's a pretty solid play. He's done well on the par fours this year. He's 30th on tour in par four, birdie or better. And, we're on a par 70. That's what you need to be able to do. So I think he's a good play. I mean, I think we have to start taking Keegan seriously a little bit, right? I mean, he's been playing well recently. Henley, I could fade. And then Finau, I'm playing every time he's in the field. It doesn't matter what his salary is, anything.
Finau's been super consistent as of late, so I can't disagree with you there at all. Henley, I don't know. Henley's been talked up as like a GPP play across the industry. I don't know how to feel about that.
I mean, it makes sense from like a game theory sort of deal because he's in salary. He's right between Finau and Bradley. Those two guys are being talked up quite a bit. So, I mean, it makes sense just like from that perspective, but I'll take the ownership and I'll play one of those other two guys and I'll figure it out elsewhere. Like I don't really want to try to get cute and try to hit when he puts it back together because he's been making cuts the last two times out, but I mean, he's what, 3 of 6 making cuts in his last 6 starts. So I don't need to do that at 9,300. I can find plenty of other plays who are in better form, who have a better course fit, and I'll eat the salary with Finau, save the $200 and differentiate elsewhere.
Yeah, that's pretty much the best thing you can do here. The guy like Finau is probably my favorite guy in this 9K range. But yeah, he's cheaper than a lot of these other guys. So yeah, I do think it's a good call there. Any other love here you have for the 9K range, or can we move on to the 8?
No, I think we're ready for the 8s.
All right. So yeah, we'll jump down to the 8K range where we have Kevin Streelman, James Hahn, Jason Cockrick, Sung Kang, JB Holmes, Graham DeLate, Jamie Luffmark, Nick Watney, Sean O'Hare, and Jeff Jeff O. That's for the idea of saving myself. That's what he's going to be.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah. So where is your love here in this range?
I mean, Kevin Strillman was sort of like almost like a punchline at one point this year. It's like, how can you play the guy? But he's put together 4 straight top 25, top 20s actually. So I think he's an interesting play this week. I wouldn't go crazy on him because he does still, I don't know. He has that a little bit of that, like maybe he's slightly overpriced for his ability, not necessarily for how he's played lately, but like his just raw talent. I think he's a little overpriced. Especially when you have like James Hahn right below him at 8,800, who I think is a slightly better play. If you want to go the driving distance angle, you can throw Kokrak into a couple lineups. He's great off the tee. He's 13th in strokes gained off the tee, and he's done well on the par 4s this year. But I really kind of like JB Holmes. Again, with the par 4 scoring on a par 70, he's 13th in birdie or better on par 4s. He's gaining strokes off the tee. He's good around the greens. So if his irons click and he strikes the ball well, I could definitely see him competing here. And then, I mean, I guess you could throw in a little bit of love mark. But I'm not really there on O'Hare or Ogilvy. Ogilvy flashed last week and finished 13th, but he's been pretty awful this year overall. Like he hasn't had many top finishes, so I'm really sort of narrowing in on JB. Throw in a little bit of love mark. And then, Sung Kang, you can't really argue with him. I don't know if you were watching this week, but basically, if Kang's caddy just brought an umbrella, like he probably could have won the tournament. Like it started pouring, the dude's soaking wet, and it completely threw him off. So he still finished 5th. He's been making a ton of cuts lately. I wrote him up in the article this week. He's top 50 on tour in strokes gained off the tee. He's 10th in par 5 scoring, so he'll get after it on the couple of par 5s. And yeah, I think those are a few like reasonable cash plays with Kang, Holmes, and then if you want to throw love mark into some GPPs, I think that's sort of where I'm going.
Well, it's good we had Jeff's last name cleared up for us. It's certainly poor last name pronunciation is on brand.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I pretty much agree with you on those takes. I do like JB Holmes quite a bit.
Yeah.
Even though he's not as accurate off the tee as I want him to be, I still like him. Especially because of the distance that he'll get you.
And I like I said, this is a longer par 70, and there have been guys who have won or competed, top 5-ish that have just overpowered the course and haven't performed like terribly well in driving accuracy. Like you can get away if you're like top 10 in distance and you're only like 60th or 65th out of the 70 guys in driving accuracy. People have won with that at this course before. So I'm not going crazy on driving accuracy. I'm really more focused on, hitting greens, and he can run hot with his irons. Like that's not really an issue. So.
All right. Well, any other notes you have for the 8K range here? I think Sung Kang makes for a solid play.
Yeah.
He's been playing some somewhat decent golf as of late.
Yeah. And like I said, he's making cuts, and he's relative to this field. You can't really argue with him. I don't really see a way that he misses the cut, given that he's made so many cuts in stronger fields recently. So I'm good with Kang.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll jump down to the 7K range. We have quite a few guys here. So we'll start with the upper half, so 7,500 and up, where we have Xander, Jimmy Walker, Johnson Wagner, Siwoo Kim, and Gary Woodland in this part of the range here. Who are you liking most? And I mean, it's not a ton of guys, but like, who are you liking here?
I mean, we got to mash the brand play of Xander, right? I mean,
Oh yeah, he's been doing really well as of late.
it's wild, man. He's sort of, I don't know if this is his peak or he's still on the way up, but I mean, you can't argue with the way that he's played recently. In this field, I mean, I know his world golf ranking isn't great. He's like just outside of the top 150, but I really feel like he could have been in the 8K range, like mid eights, because this field is so weak, but I'll take it. He's one of the longest guys on tour. He hits greens. He's 19th on tour in greens and regulation. He's 10th in par four birdie or better. Like, there's really, if you're going to talk about a par 70 course where you need some accuracy and you need some distance, I don't really see a way that you could really poke holes in his game. I don't think I can trust Jimmy Walker. He's just sort of struggled his last few times out and hasn't played a ton. I think I read somewhere he has like Lyme disease or something. So I think that might be like a part of it. But I'm not gonna pay for him with Xander only $100 more expensive. I'm not touching Johnson Wagner. I'm not touching Siwoo Kim because the guy is either, I mean, talk about a roller coaster. Like,
Oh yeah, Siwoo Kim. I was about to say something about him if you didn't, but like, how do you go you're 13th, you win a tournament, and then you get 4 missed cuts in like the same 6 tournament span?
yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it really doesn't make that much sense. So I don't know. Maybe these course fits have been off for him as of late. I have no idea. But it's definitely interesting to look at his game log just a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, Siwoo Kim, we're obviously not touching there. What about Gary Woodland? How you I mean, he's been okay, not great.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's sort of been battling through like some personal stuff, so he hasn't played great, but he still has been making cuts. And if he's going to put it together, again, sort of the same mold as Xander, like you're talking about a guy who's top 20 in driving distance, top 20 in greens and regulation, scores well, reasonably well on the par fours, and does very well on par fives. So, I mean, if he's able to just sort of, I don't know, like get his head on straight and just actually put his game together the way that he's capable of playing, there's no reason why he can't compete on a course like this. So I'm probably going to be looking more towards Xander and cash and throwing Woodland and some GPPs, but I really don't want to touch the 3 guys in between them. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know. You could sprinkle him in, but it might not be the best idea ever. All right, now we'll go to the lower half of the 7K range where we have quite a few guys, including the DFS community's BFF, Grayson Murray. He is at 7,400 this week. He struggled like the weekend last week. He was struggling.
Yeah, I mean, he ejected on on Sunday. He shot 81 on Sunday, which, I mean, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But he did well on Thursday. He came out and shot 68, and then sort of, I guess he made the cut by a couple of strokes. Shot 1 over on Saturday, and then just left the building. So I don't know. I think objectively, I think he's a fine play. He's been making cuts. But I don't know. I don't really want to play, just like momentum wise, I don't really want to play regardless of how much of whatever he is. Um, I really don't want to play a guy who shoots 81 on Sunday and comes back to start the next week. So I probably won't have a ton of him. I mean, Bryson all of a sudden is a thing again. Like I don't know if I can trust him after 2 good starts because he's missed like every other cut in the past couple months. This range is kind of like, it's hard to, I mean, if you can pick one of these guys in the like low 7,000s to play in cash, God bless. Like if you have the conviction to play most of these guys, I'm not seeing it just from like a cut making perspective.
So obviously they're not. I mean, obviously they're not cash game plays in your mind, but who are you looking at for GPPs?
I mean, it's just gross, man. I mean, like I can't even say, like, Ben Martin has like the most cut equity out of these guys. Like it's just a weird range for me this week. Yeah, I mean, maybe you can get on board a little bit with Ali just because he has been making cuts, and it's sort of the same thing like we talked about with a couple other guys. Like he has some distance, and if he just runs hot with his irons and strikes the ball well, he's done well on par 4s this year. So maybe he's a play. But God, man, I mean, do you feel comfortable with any of these guys really? Like, is anybody jumping out to you?
No, I mean, there really isn't, right? I mean, Grayson Murray, I'll still play him.
Right.
I think I'm comfortable with him. Ali, I'm okay with playing, but nowhere else really in that part. Although we can always look at the $7,200 brother of Harry, Ted Potter, who I think's played one event and missed the cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
not great.
I kind of just wanted to fit the joke in, but
Nah, I hear you.
It could work. I don't know. Well, there is certainly one golfer who's always worth a look when he's playing.
No, can't talk about him yet. We're not in the 6,000s. Hold on.
I know. I'm just saying. Well, is there anyone else in the 7K range you want to talk about? I mean, you could look at a guy like Curtis Luck, who is certainly getting lucky, or was lucky last week with a 5th place finish, although he could have kind of won this thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's a kid who just turned pro. He's still, he's still sort of dipping his toes into the water on tour. But he has a good game. I mean, he was 22nd in greens of regulation last week. He putted well. I mean, there's definitely, if you want to throw a dart at him in a GPP, I have no problem with that. But like I said, this whole range cash wise is sort of untouchable for me. In my cash lineups, like I said earlier, you can go balanced and you can find guys 8K and up and just sort of build around that. I don't see a reason to play many of these guys. Yeah, I mean, we can jump down to the 6K. Like I truly, this is one of the most like dead ranges that I think I've seen for me this year. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. It's very possible, but I mean, I'm not seeing it. Jim Herman objectively has a good course fit, but I mean, he's missed his last few cuts, and he hasn't played. He's not lighting the world on fire right now. So, yeah, we can sort of bounce down to the 6Ks if you don't have anybody else.
No one else in that range. Before we talk about just the number one play of any week he plays, Stewart Cink, worth a look.
Oh yeah, always.
I mean, because he has, in his last 4 events that he's played, he has a 46th, 10th, 25th, and 10th.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
he's made four straight cuts.
yeah, he's been making cuts like crazy this year. He's only missed 3 on the year out of 16 starts that he's made. Um, he's an accurate ball striker. He does well on the par fours. Um, he's up there in strokes gained putting as well. Like it's hard to argue with him. And you want to talk about like, a class golfer or a pedigreed golfer. Obviously, he's not in his prime anymore, but you're talking about a guy who was like 5th in the world at one point, and he's played well all year. It's not like David Duval is coming back and making a start, and you're like, oh, he used to be really good. Like Sink has played well all year, so I think he's an excellent play. I don't have fan share up right now, but I'd imagine that he's going to be pretty high on. Although, yeah, I mean he's pretty high up there for his price. Curtis Luck is being talked about quite a bit too, so that might not be the best GPP play, but
well, you know who will be the best GPP play?
Oh God, just go ahead.
It's time. Will Wilcox.
All right, what do you got?
In his last 4 starts, he's made 3 cuts and has a 27th and a 14th in there.
Yep.
You have to give him some reason to be in your lineups.
Do you though?
You do. I always throw him in at least 2. Because if I'm making 20 lineups,
like 500 or
nah, yeah, because I only end up playing the MME contests that are 20 max entry, and I always have Willie in 10% of lineups, which in that case obviously would be 2.
Okay, I think that's fine. I mean, definitely in a GPP, he's worth a look, but I mean, you wouldn't put him in cash, right? Like, I mean, wild.
You could. You could easily put Will Wilcox in cash.
This is not good.
I'm not going to, but you could. I mean, the thing is, though, I wasn't really planning on playing cash games this week.
Yeah.
I just don't see the need or the desire to want to sweat that out, especially with this field. Right. So yeah, I mean, Will Wilcox is just you can't just outright avoid him. He's everywhere.
Oh, you can. Just watch me.
See, here's the thing, though. You say you're going to avoid him.
Yep.
Yet, DraftKings openly has, games where you can, if you win those games or do well in them, you get to spend time with Will Wilcox.
I think you should. I think
that was the thing at one point.
I think those contests, it should only be if you actually roster him in the tournament. Like, he should be 100% owned. If you don't put him in your lineup, you obviously don't want to spend time with him. So you shouldn't be eligible if you don't play him.
You should call up John Aguilar on that one.
Because how awkward is that if you go and you're like, oh, cool, I won this contest on DraftKings. I get to chill with you today, Willie. And then he's like, oh, what tournament did you play me in? And you're like,
oh, I did.
Actually, I faded you. So yeah, that's why I'm here, because you're terrible.
Will Wilcox is a funny guy, so I think it might be. It might be something he does. Right? I mean, I think knowing him,
that's fair.
Laugh at that, if anything else. Anyway, yeah. So bottom line, have some exposure to Will Wilcox. He'll probably win all the money at that point. Yeah, looking at the 60 or the 6K range, there's really not a whole lot. Like last week, we had some gems down here. But right now, it's just bad.
I mean, we talk about it a lot. This 69 to 6,800 range usually has a couple of guys who are just like really, really wrongly priced. I mean, outside of Sink, I don't think there's a lot here. If you do any betting, Scott Brown's in the field this week, so first round leader bet is a lock. It's just the thing that he does. I think somebody tweeted out a couple weeks ago like a picture of a calendar where they just wrote Thursday on every day instead. So and said that he should have that as his calendar. But
I mean, I'm telling you, if these tournaments were only 1 day long, he would be a very rich man.
oh yeah. Um
That's also a very I don't know. I think Scott Brown might be a good DFS player.
yeah.
If he ever wanted to like get off the tour and just play DFS golf, I think he would be a very interesting addition to the community. Um, all right. So really, is there anyone else in this range that you're looking at all? Because you scroll down and it's just ugly.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I mean, oy. I'm looking, I'm not really seeing a ton. I mean, if you I put what's his name? Tom Hoagie in my article this week. He's just stone minimum this week. And I think he's because of his par three scoring, and he's been up and down a little bit, but he's made more cuts than people realize. I think he's like 7 of 11 this year. So for a GPP, if you want to throw him in and just be able to just mash in some of those top 4 guys that we talked about earlier, I think that he's worth like a lineup or two. He's definitely. I think he should be like 6,700, 6,800. So, but outside of that, I mean, this is just brutal territory. Some of these guys, a lot of these guys down here don't even like have enough rounds to qualify for the stats that I pulled from the PGA Tour website. So like you're really digging deep if you're going down here.
Well, here's a gem. John Daly is playing in this.
Yes, he is.
That's it's a throwback.
It's something. Actually, I did just scroll by, and I definitely will have a little bit of Seamus Power again this week. We did it. We got our one. We were the only ones to talk about him last week, and he did make the cut and finished 38th last week. So this is a similar course to last year. To last year, I'm an idiot. To last week. So he played well on a course similar last week. There's no reason why he couldn't keep it going. So
now, does Fanshare know that we talked about him?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He Andrew actually tweeted out or put it in the write up on Seamus Power last week. If you click on him, it's still there. It said something like Matt got his wish or something like that, because I mentioned how I wanted to have like one guy be the only guy to talk about him. So
okay, I like it. All right.
Although I guess technically he got 2 tags because I wrote him up last week in DraftKings too. So, but they were both me. So
but yeah, you accounted for the only mentions of him all week.
Yeah. So I'll take small victories because I didn't win a thing last week, so I'll take it.
All right. I'm assuming no one else really here in the 6K range is worth talking about.
I cannot in good conscience mention any of these names.
All right. Well, I think it does it for us then. This has been the Bogey Free podcast for the Greenbrier Classic. Make sure to subscribe to the pod on iTunes. Make sure also to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Bogey Free, and then make sure to follow both of us on Twitter at eChaney17 and at MattJonesTFR. And of course, if we're not winning all the money, we hope you guys do. So good luck in your contests this week.